Hello, my dear students. In this video, we are going to discuss 14 different literary devices. And usually, when we listen to the names like paradox or onomatopoeia or alliteration, we get really scared about what it actually means. But in this video, I'm going to explain it in the most simplest manner that you are never going to get confused in your life. So, without wasting much time, let's begin. So these are the list of the 14 literary devices that we are going to discuss today. Seems very complicated, isn't it? Don't worry. Let's begin. So the first one is metaphor. Now, when do we say that it is a metaphor? When two different things are compared. Means the things are very different, but they are compared to each other. But one thing that you have to remember in metaphor is that when they are comparing two things, they don't use the word as or like. Now let's look at an example for you to understand. You are a shining star. So you're compared to what? A star. So you are compared. You and star are completely different things, but you're comparing yourself and the star. So this is a metaphor. If you see here, the words like as and like are not used. So when two different things are compared to each other without using as and like, it is called a metaphor. Let's look at another example. Life is a roller coaster full of twists and turns. So, what has happened here? Life is compared to a completely different object, which is a roller coaster. So, there is comparison, and they haven't used the words like as and like. So, is this clear? This is metaphor. Very simple, isn't it? Okay. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is simile. Now, what is simile? Again, it is just like metaphor where two different things are compared. But in simile, the words like as, than, or like is used. Mostly as and like is used, but sometimes than is used. Okay, let's look at an example. He is as blind as a bat. Now, if you see this boy, he's compared to a bat, but as is used. So this is not a metaphor, this is now a simile. Moving to the next example. The movie is larger than life. So here the movie is one item and it is compared to life. And what word is used to compare? Than. So this becomes a simile. The next example. She sings like an angel. So she is compared to an angel here. And what word is used? Like is used. So this becomes a simile. So now have you understood what is a metaphor and what is a simile? Now let's test your understanding. Now can you differentiate between metaphor and simile and tell me? This is the first question. My heart felt like a lead weight. So your heart is very heavy. So here the heart is compared to lead. So is this a metaphor or a simile? It is a simile, yes, because the word like is used to compare it. Moving to the second question. The mind is a sponge. So here the mind is compared to a sponge, but no words such as like or as or than is used. So it becomes a metaphor. Perfect, very good. The third question. The classroom is a zoo. So what is it? Metaphor or simile? It is a metaphor, correct. Next, she is as light as a feather. So she's compared to be as light as a feather. So this is a simile, perfect, because as is used. Next, time is money. This is pretty evident. The answer is a metaphor. Very good. So now the concept of metaphor and simile is clear. Let's move on to the next one, which is imagery. Now, what is imagery? Imagery is a figure of speech which uses vivid descriptions that appeal to the five senses. So, what are the five senses? Which is taste, and taste is otherwise called gustatory. Next is smell. Smell is otherwise called olfactory. The next is touch. Touch is otherwise called tactile. The next is sight. Sight is visual. And the last is hearing, which is called auditory. So, an imagery is a figure of speech that appeals to one of these senses, and you either imagine that in your mind. So, let's first look at an example and try to make it easier for you. The first one, he savored the meat that was succulent, tender, and juicy. So, didn't you imagine the taste of it, which was succulent, tender, and juicy? So, this imagery is imagery of taste or gustatory, where you are explaining it in such a way that you are using your gustatory sense to imagine it. The next one, he could smell the sweet scent of jasmine wafting through the air as she passed by his table. So you are imagining the smell, her passing through it because of the sweet jasmine wafting through the air. So here your olfactory sense is kindled. So this is imagery of smell. The next one, as she walked through the park, the grass below her feet felt like soft velvet. So you imagined the grass below to be soft and velvety. So this is tactile, imagery of touch. The next, the sky was mostly clear. So you are imagining the sky to be very clear. And in places, it was dotted with fluffy white clouds. So didn't you imagine fluffy white clouds here and there? So this is imagery of sight or visual. And the next one, the leaves were dry and crunching under our feet, and the wind howled as we passed through the forest. So here you are imagining the crunching of the leaves under your feet. You can hear the wind howling. So this is auditory. So what is imagery? It is usually used in poems or in novels where the writer uses such language that it creates an image or an idea in their head, and people feel an emotional or sensational experience while they read. So this is imagery. I hope that is clear. Let's move on to the next one. Next is hyperbole. So what is hyperbole? Hyperbole is extreme exaggeration that they use, especially for effect or to magnify an emotional response. So usually many poems have hyperbole in them, which is usually for comical effect. So ICSE students would know that in their syllabus there is this poem called The Power of Music, where Bhishma Lochan Sharma's singing is exaggerated and hyperbole is used. Okay, now let's come back. Let's look at some examples of hyperbole. First, I am so hungry I could eat an elephant. Extreme exaggeration, you're so hungry, but can you eat an elephant? I don't think so. So this is hyperbole. Or sometimes we say this bag weighs a ton. So how much is a ton? A ton is 1,000 kilograms, right? So does a bag weigh 1,000 kilograms? Definitely not. My heart stopped when I saw her. So we say that, right? If your heart stops, you're no longer alive. And the last one, the car is moving at snail's pace. So if you know snails, they move really slowly. So you want to say that the car is moving slowly, but hyperbole is used in our speech on a day-to-day basis. So hyperbole is extreme exaggeration. So I hope that is clear as well. Let's move on to the next one, which is irony. So what is irony? Irony is a contrast between what is expected and what happens. Means Sometimes you expect something, but the exact opposite happens. So that is called irony. Like if you know in Julius Caesar calls Brutus and others his closest of friends. But unfortunately, they end up stabbing him and killing him. So that is an ironical situation. So irony. So it is contrast between what they expect and what happens. Now let's look at some examples of irony. First one, there was a robbery at the police station. So police station is supposed to be a safe place where the police actually catches the robber. But here there was a robbery at the police station. This is again irony. Contrast between what is expected and what happens. The next, the pilot is afraid of heights. So the pilot is supposed to be a person who flies the aircraft thousands of kilometers above the ground. So a pilot here is afraid of heights. So this is again an irony. Next, a marriage counselor files for divorce. So irony here is a marriage counselor is supposed to save the marriage, but again here he files for divorce. And the next one, a lifeguard drowns at the beach. So lifeguard is supposed to save people, but he drowns at the beach. Again, all of these are ironical situations. If you see the image here, a bird is sitting. What do birds do? They fish. But here it is written no fishing. So here also you can see irony. I hope irony is also clear. Let's quickly move on to the next one, which is paradox. Now what is paradox? Listen carefully. So a paradoxical statement, it seems to be logically contradictory. Means when you first listen to it, you will be like, what? This doesn't make sense. It seems contradictory. But when you look deeper, it turns out to make sense. So initially, when you look at the paradoxical statement, it appears to be silly, but it contains some truth or some sense in it. So let's look at an example and see. The first question. Nobody goes to that restaurant. It is too crowded. So first when you look at it, you'll be like, what? If nobody goes, how can it be crowded? What the person wants to say, people don't go there because it is always crowded. So initially, logically, it seems contradictory, but it makes sense because people avoid going there because it is too crowded. Do you understand? So that is paradox. It seems contradictory, but then it makes sense. Let's go to the next one. This is the beginning of the end. Now it seems contradictory, right? Beginning and end. But ये अंत का शुरुआत है. So this is the beginning of the end. Like many people say this is the Kali Yuga, so this is the beginning of the end. So it makes sense, but seems contradictory. Third one. If I know one thing, it is that I know nothing. So maybe a learned person where he's learned so much, but when he gets to know a lot of other things, he might say, there's one thing that I know, it is that I know nothing. So initially when you look at it, it seems silly. What is this person trying to say? But there is a lot of depth in this sentence. So that is called paradox. Let me give you two more examples. Less is more. So they say, right, if you have less things, it is a lot more. So again, paradoxical statement. Or the only constant in life is change. So seems contradictory, but it makes sense because change keeps happening in one's life. Okay, so I hope you understood. I've tried to make it as simple as possible. Let's move to the next one. The next is assonance. Now listen very carefully. What is assonance? It's a figure of speech where it uses words having similar vowel sounds in nearby words. Okay? And the sounds need not be at the beginning of the word. It can be anywhere in between. But in a sentence, many of the words in the sentence have a similar vowel sound. So what are the vowel sounds? A, E, I, O, U, or the sound eh, I, oh, or. These are the vowel sounds. So that is called assonance, where vowel sounds are present in the words in a sentence. Now let's look at an example. The first is the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. So if you see here, I have underlined AI here. A, so A sound. So rain in Spain mainly plain. So A is there. So this is assonance. A sound is repeated. Now let's look at another example. Mike's bike has bright white stripes. I. So here my I, I, and I. So I sound is repeated, right? Bike, bright, white, stripes. Got an idea? Let's look at the third. The whale sails away with the tail to say. So, ale, ale, ale. So, vowel sounds are repeated here in these sentences. So, that is called assonance. They needn't be in the beginning of the word, it could be anywhere in between. So, you can find assonance in poems where usually for rhyming effect they use it. So we have completed assonance. Let's go to the next one, which is personification. So when you listen to the name itself, personification, you get an idea that it is giving human characteristics to something that is not human. That is, we are making it personification. We're making something that is non-human into human. Let's look at an example. The first one. The sun came peeping in at morn. So this is a sentence from the poem I Remember, which is written by Thomas Hood. So sun is not a living thing. It's a non-living thing. So here it is said that the sun came peeping in. So if you see the image here, the sun is coming peeping. So it's humans who peep, right? So here there is personification used in this sentence. Here the sun is personified. Let's look at the other sentence. The wind whispered secrets through the tree. So wind can't whisper. They are non-living. But here it is given a human trait of whispering. So here the wind is personified as whispering secrets. The next one. My phone was not cooperating with me. Is a phone a living thing? No. But who cooperates? Humans, they cooperate with each other. So here again, personification is used in the sentence. The next one. Opportunity knocked on her door. So opportunity is a non-living concept, isn't it? But here it is personified to be knocking at her door. So this is called personification. Is it crystal clear? Personification was easy. Let's go to the next one, which is onomatopoeia. Now please look at the spelling. Okay. Seems very complicated when you listen to it, right? Onomatopoeia, but it is very simple. What is onomatopoeia? When words are written as the sound it makes. So if anything makes a sound, that sound word is given. Like if you know the famous nursery rhyme, the cows on the farm goes moo moo moo. So the cow makes a sound moo. So this is onomatopoeia. The sound what it makes is written in words. Very simple. Now let's look at the first example. The mouse made a squeak as it ran into its hole. So the mouse, what sound does it make? It makes the sound of a squeak. So this is onomatopoeia. Next one. This is again a famous nursery rhyme of children. The wheels on the bus. So one of the line is the horn on the bus goes beep beep beep. So horn, and its sound is mentioned here. So this is onomatopoeia. The paneer was sizzling in the pan. So what sound was it making? Sizzling sound. That is again onomatopoeia. And the last one. The wind whooshed through the trees. So whooshed. Or sometimes the car crashed with a boom. So again, boom, because of boom, it becomes onomatopoeia. So if the sound that it makes is mentioned in words, then it becomes onomatopoeia. The popcorn popped with a pop. Okay, I hope it's clear. Let's go to the next one, which is alliteration. So what was the first one that we learned? Assonance, right? So what was assonance? Vowel sounds in closely placed words. Now this is alliteration. So what is alliteration? The words start with the same consonant sound. So what is consonant? Anything that is not vowel. So which is not A, E, I, O. So it shouldn't be this. So those letters are called consonants. So when closely placed words start with the same consonant sound, it is called alliteration. Let's look at the example. First one. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So most of the words start with P. P. The next one. The wind was whistling through the weeping willows. Woof, 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 isn't it? And the third one. The sly snake slithered slowly in the sand. Sir sound it is making in most of the words. So this is called alliteration. So usually there are three confusing ones. One is alliteration, one is allusion, and the third is assonance. So we completed assonance. Now we learned what is alliteration. Okay, so how I remember this is रेशन कार्ड लेके पहले खड़े रहना चाहते थे और सबको एक ही चीज पसंद है, right? Which is rice and dal. When they stand with the ration card, सबको एक ही चीज मिलेगा. So I remember like that. Okay, alliteration means ration card लेके सबको first खड़े रहना है, सबको एक ही चीज मिलेगा. So that is what alliteration. Same consonant sound in closely placed words, and it is usually placed in the first letter of the sentence. So I hope you can remember that. Let's move to the next one, which is allusion. So what is allusion? It is a reference either to a person, a famous person, a famous place, an event, or a story. Okay, let's give an example so you will understand. His transformation was nothing short of a Cinderella story. Now, in this sentence, a reference is given to a very famous story, the Cinderella story. So you come to know that, okay, maybe the person was in rags and he went to riches. So you're using allusion here and giving a reference to something famous so that the person understands what you're trying to say. Like in CBSE syllabus, there is this poem called Amanda, where the girl Amanda says, I am Rapunzel and I have not a care. I live in a tower which is tranquil and rare, and I'll certainly never let down my bright hair. So in this, allusion is used where she is comparing herself to Rapunzel. And who was Rapunzel? Rapunzel was a fairy tale where she lives in a tower and the evil witch, she climbs up the tower by letting down her hair. So here a reference is given to a famous fairy tale. So this is allusion. And the last one, she has the Mona Lisa smile, which is mysterious and enchanting. So again, reference is given to a person here. Mona Lisa, we all know the famous painting. So this is allusion. So how I remember is allusion. It gives an illusion of a famous person. That is how I remember. Clear? Okay, quickly moving on to the next one, which is oxymoron. So oxymoron is exactly contradictory words with exactly opposite meaning that are placed together. Like for example, the desk is an organized mess. So mess means something that is not organized. And here you are placing organized with mess. So this is an oxymoron. Second one, there was deafening silence in the room. So what is deafening? Deafening means which will make you deaf so loud. but there was deafening silence where the silence was loud. Means you want to say that there was total silence in the room. The next, it is an open secret. So if something is open, it can't be a secret, isn't it? So this is an oxymoron here. Or there's another one which many parents usually say, be careful, run slowly. So running is usually fast. How can you run slowly? So when two exactly opposite meaning words are placed with each other, it is called an oxymoron. Okay, so we're done with oxymoron. Now we're coming to the second last literary device, which is symbolism. So symbolism is very easy. Symbolism is where one thing, it is written, but it is meant to represent something else. Means that word actually symbolizes something else. That is called symbolism. Let me give you an example to explain. The first one. When she saw the red rose in his hands, she understood what he felt. Okay, so when she saw the red rose in his hand, she understood what he felt. How did she understand what he felt? Because here, red rose, they symbolize love. Isn't it? So this is symbolism. Let's go to another example. The two countries declared peace treaty by releasing white doves. So here, what do white doves symbolize? They symbolize peace. The next one. She kept the fire inside her alive by reading motivational quotes. So here, what does fire represent here? Determination, dedication, or passion. So these are all sentences with symbolism in them. Let's go to the last one. My grandmother is like an owl. She always knows how to advise me when I am struggling. So here, grandmother is compared to an owl. So what does an owl symbolize here? Being wise. Now coming to our last literary device, which is anaphora. So anaphora is the repetition of the same word or phrase at the beginning of the sentence. So you can usually find anaphora in poems so that it brings in a rhythm. Let's look at this example. So this stanza I have taken from the poem The Night Mail. So it is like letters with holiday snaps to enlarge in, letters with faces scrawled in the margin, letters from uncles, cousins, and aunts, letters to Scotland from the south of France. So the word letters is repeated in the beginning of every line. So this is anaphora. And this is a famous words by Winston Churchill. He says, "We shall fight on the benches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills." So "we shall fight" is a phrase that is repeated in the beginning of the sentence, which makes it anaphora. So I hope that is clear. And we have successfully completed all the 14 literary devices. So wasn't it easy? It was, right? Thank you so much for watching this video until the end. Also, please don't forget to share this video among your friends. And if you haven't subscribed, do that right now. Thank you so much. I'm praying for each one of you. God bless.